welcome back to Fly Past RC. Today we're carrying on with our Falcon Evo build from flyingwings.co.uk. Now, where we left it on the last video was the fuselage build had been finished, and where we're going to start now is we're going to start with our wings and our fuselage. Before you start this stage of the build, if you'd like to, it's up to you, it's now is the best time to spray paint or colour your wings and your fuselage before we build any further, just to keep all the spraying nice and easy and nice and neat, and it will keep it all looking smart rather than doing it at the end. So I spray painted my wings. I did stripes on the bottom and then big rectangles on the top in an orange spray paint. Obviously, make sure your spray paint will work for foam, and if you've got a spare piece, just test it on that to make sure it's not going to eat the foam. Any of the adhesives or the solvents inside aren't going to destroy your foam, because that would be pretty upsetting. So what I've done with the fuselage is I've coloured it with tape, which is also supplied from flyingwings.co.uk. It's just coloured packing tape, get a variety of different colours. I've used blue and red on mine. And as I mentioned at the end of the last video, it's important to leave the side profile of the wing paint free. So I've painted around it black. It's important to leave that paint free because that's where we're going to be gluing to later on, and we don't want to have any issues with how our wings are held to the fuselage. Also, you'll notice at the back of the fuselage, I've left a square where our motor mount is going to be attached later on. So we're going to glue that straight to the foam. We don't want to be gluing that onto paint or onto any tape. We want to be gluing foam to foam. Otherwise, it's only going to be as strong as the adhesive on the tape or as the paint. So once you've coloured your wing, once you've sprayed your wings or you've coloured your fuselage, however you want to do it, what we're going to do is we're going to grab one of the wings, and the next stage is the covering. So let's crack on into that now. So for the covering stage, covering is very easy. It intimidates a lot of people, but it's actually surprisingly easy. Hopefully I'm going to demonstrate how easy it is. So before we start, what we're going to do is we're going to get our wing. Obviously we're going to want to do it for both of them. I've only filmed one of them, exactly the same process for them both. And we're going to get our laminate, and we're going to just template it out, just loosely template it. So here I'm folding over the template and I'm just going to cut it very roughly, as you'll see, just enough to make sure that the wing's covered. Now you'll notice that the corner, the upper right hand corner of the wing doesn't have any covering on. We're going to do it twice. It'll help with strengthening it. The more laminate you've got on, the stronger it will be, and that's a good thing. It also makes it waterproof, which is excellent. But main thing we're after is the strength. So the first thing you need to do then is just roughly cut out your shapes of laminate. So I've cut the first part out. I'm now going to just measure out a second part to go over the back of the wing and over the front, just to make sure that entire wing is covered. So once we have our two templates, we're going to remove the second one and just have one on the wing, just to make it much easier to work with. So at this stage, before we've started, you're going to want to turn your tacking iron on. If you don't have a tacking iron, you can just use a normal household iron. Just make sure it's quite a low temperature to start with. Just do a couple of test bits just to make sure. So the first thing we're going to do is lay our covering over the wing. We're going to make sure the entire surface is covered. So as you can see, I'm just pulling the wing up to the right. So there's a bit of excess coming out on the left, but that doesn't matter for now. What we're going to do is just pull it tight and make sure it's nice and straight. The straighter and neater it is now, the easier it is to cover it. So what I'm going to do with the tacking iron is I've preheated it and I'm going to place it down on just on the edge of the wing here. So I'm just going to place it down on a corner, and you'll notice that the laminate is slightly grey. Now when you tack it down, it heats up the glue and makes it go see-through. And when it's see-through, you know it's melted and then it's reformed. So once our glue has a nice seal, I've only done it in a couple of spots, just on the edges. I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to pull it all tight again on the bottom. Again, the neater you are at this stage now, the neater it will be finished. So once it's neat, once it's tight, I'm just going to tack in the left-hand corner, then in the right-hand corner, just to keep it all nice and straight before I tack anything further. So once I'm happy that that everything's strong and in the right place, I can now turn it over. It's going to stay in the right place. I can pull this last corner down and tight and tack it into the corner. So once we're happy that it's all tacked, we can now start going over it with the iron, and as you'll see, the bits that I go over start changing colour slightly onto the wing. So that's the greyness in the laminate is changing colour as the glue's melting and then gluing the laminate to the wing underneath. So this is going to increase the strength. It also makes it a nice smooth surface. So very slowly, making sure we don't have any creases in, we're just going to go over the entire wing surface, top, bottom and leading edge, and make sure it's all glued down and it's all nice and neat and nice and straight. So as you can see, just doing little circles, heating up areas at a time. We don't want to be doing huge, massive strokes with it. We just need to do little areas and make sure you're not using too much heat. You don't want to be damaging the foam underneath the laminate either. Once we're happy we've tacked the entire laminate, the entire surface of laminate on our wing, we're going to turn it over and we're going to trim off the underside excess. So the excess from the underside of the wing, we're just going to trim that off for now, and we're going to leave the top half on. So once we've trimmed the bottom half off, we're going to pull the top edge around onto the bottom side of the wing, and we're then going to tack that on as well, so we've got full coverage on our wing. Once we're happy that we've laminated the other side on, we're just going to give it a quick look around, a quick inspection, just to make sure we've got every patch. Once we're happy with our laminating job, we can now just trim off the excess from the edges of the wings. Now it's important that you trim these off and don't fold them over and re-laminate, because we're going to be gluing to the edges of these wings, so we don't want any laminate there. We want to leave that as just foam on the outside. So just going over the last few spots with the tacking iron, going to cover the leading edge of the wing, make sure that's all tacked down, and then finally just going to trim off the excess around where the cutout is for the prop at the back, at the bottom back edge of the wing. So now we're happy with that. What we're going to do is repeat the exact same process for our second template that we cut out in the beginning, just to cover this last corner, the bottom part and the last corner of the top end of the wing. Again, we're just going to lay our laminate out, stretch it nice and tight, tack it in a couple of spots, and then tack the entire thing so it's nice and strong. And we're then going to cut off all the excess this time. We're not going to save any and tack it over. We're just going to cut it off. We want to make sure we cut it off on the edge of the wing as well, again, because we're going to be gluing to that, and we don't want to glue to the laminate. We just want to glue the foam straight onto the fuselage, just to keep it nice and strong. So unfortunately my camera cut out here and I didn't notice, and I carried on building. But luckily we haven't missed much. So I finished off the laminate as we did with the other sheet on the first half of the wing, cut off all the excess, and that was the laminating done. I then repeated that for the next wing, so I've got both the wings covered, and the next stage now is to fix on our ailerons. Now this is easily done with some tape. That's all it is, nothing complicated. So the way that this is done is we apply tape to the bottom edge of our wing, and we then just tape it straight onto our aileron. Now it's important that you leave a little bit of room to allow the aileron to tilt backwards. It's not going to hit the foam. You want to have it nice and freely moving. So to apply your tape on the top of the wing at the back, and then tape the aileron on from the top first. Once you've got the top on, fold the aileron all the way over onto its back, so it's resting on the top of the wing. Once you've done that, you can now tape the underside. So what this will do is it allow the two bits of tape to just touch in the middle, in between, and in between the wing and the aileron, and it will make a really strong joint, but just out of tape. When we glue it on, it's important to leave about 5mm of space off the left hand edge or right hand edge of the wing. This is to allow the aileron to move up and down without hitting the fin on the end of the wing. It also needs to be sort of central, but we don't want to have it all the way over to the motor mount. It's important to leave about 5mm off the motor mount as well. Off the cutout for the prop. So the other thing to consider is make sure it's straight. So make sure it's glued on, it's taped on straight. Otherwise, you're going to have some bizarre tendencies happening. Next thing I did, I just got some coloured packing tape that we got from Flying Wings, and just taped over the aileron just to make it look pretty. You don't have to, but it's up to you, but I did it on mine. And that's as simple as it is to install our ailerons. So the next stage with our build is we are going to glue in our spar. So we're going to glue it into the fuselage first. First thing you want to do is find the halfway point of your spar and mark it. So I put a little notch in it and I just marked it. Once I'd marked it, I placed the spar on top of my fuselage, and I then marked the outside edges. So because I'm going to glue the spar in first, so it doesn't move when I'm putting the wings in, I only want to apply glue to the bit that's going to be touching the fuselage. So I'm only going to glue from the left of the fuselage to the right of the fuselage on my spar. I'm then going to place that through the hole, and I'm going to let it dry before I attach my wings. Now, this area here that I'm filling in with hot glue, there is a piece of wood provided to be glued in this spot. However, I have plans for the back part of my fuselage, so I didn't want to install this wooden bit here. It's advisable to, because it will add strength. If you don't want to put it in, I do suggest filling that hole with glue. So while our spar is drying in place, we're going to fit the the fins onto the edges of our wings. For this bit we're going to need our hot glue gun and some tape, simple as that. We're going to test fit them first, make sure they line up neatly. So the nose of the fin is going to line up exactly with the nose. And as you can see through these holes here, we're going to just line it up so that the fin holes are just level with everything in the wing. So we're not going to give it any bias either way. We want to be able to poke tape through these holes later on, just to keep it strong. Once we're happy we know where we're going to fit it, we're going to apply hot glue, and plenty of it, to the outside edge of our wing. We're then going to get our fin and hold it in place and move it. We've got also a very limited time to make sure we get it in the right place. So we're going to put it in, line it up, force it on, make sure the glue's covered everywhere, and then we're going to hold it in place while it dries. Now I turned my wing upside down, placed it on a flat surface and applied some pressure just to get a nice strong joint as I could. Once I was happy that the fin had dried, I had held it up, made sure it was nice and straight. Need nice 90-degree angle on it. It's important to keep them straight, just to keep everything level and make sure there's no imperfections in anything you're building. I applied some hot glue. I applied one more bead of hot glue to the top and the bottom, and then smoothed it over with my finger. Be careful if you're smoothing straight away, because your glue will be hot. Don't want you getting burnt. And also avoid the holes, because we're going to be applying tape through there later on, just for some strength. So once we've put both our fins on our wings, we're now ready to fix the wings to our fuselage. So our glue is dried on our spar, and we're now ready to fit our wings. Again, the first thing we want to do is just test fit it, make sure everything's going to slot on alright. So slot your spar into the wing, make sure it fits in the holder at the front. And then what we're going to do, we're going to take our wing off. I'm going to apply some epoxy glue, some really strong glue to the spar itself, and as many places as I can. And as I move the wing down, when I'm happy that it's going to be, when I'm happy it's going in place, I'm just going to wiggle it backwards and forwards down the spar, just to make sure that the glue gets maximum hold on the wing as it goes down. Before I push the wing onto the spar, I'm going to apply a generous amount of hot glue to the unpainted wooden side of the fuselage. So when I push it down and I make the connection, everything's going to be glued at once, and it's going to be nice and strong. Nothing's going to move again. Once I'm happy that that it's all in place, I'm going to apply a bead of hot glue to the outside edge, and I'm going to smooth that round with my finger or a bit of foam in case your glue is too hot to touch. And then it just helps create a nice seal, and also just adds a bit more strengthening. The more glue you have on, the stronger it's going to be. So once we're happy that our wing is glued in place and nice and strong, just repeat the exact same stage for our other wing, and then there's only one more thing to do. So once we've glued on our two wing halves, the last piece of gluing we're going to do is our motor mount. So as you can see, I've cut out on the fuselage where we're going to be gluing our motor mount to. I've also taped the motor mount just so it's going to look nice. It's going to blend in with the rest of the fuselage. But I've been careful to not tape where we're going to be applying glue. So apply glue on the underside and to the edges of the lower spike that's coming down off the edge of the mount. And we're going to once you apply glue, we're going to push that into place, hold it tight, and just let it dry. So once your motor mount is in place, your two wing halves are on, your fins are attached, your wing is now complete. Minus our electronics and control system, which we're going to look at in the final video. So stay tuned to Fly Past RC, and another thanks to flyingwings.co.uk for sending us this wing for the build. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you're building along with this, good luck with it, and we'll be in the air soon.